Hi, I'm Phylum. Welcome back to the show. Today I'm talking about yet another hot, controversial topic in Arena FPS, item timings. Are they good? Are they bad? Are they going to kill Diabotical? Let's find out. For people who maybe don't know, item timings in, and I'm going to be focusing on Quake family games here, just a quick side note, Quake, Quake 3, Quake Live, Reflex, Diabotical. Item timings mean that you pick up an armor on the map, it comes up 25 seconds later or so. You pick up the mega health or a health bubble on the map, it comes up after 35 seconds or so. You pick up a gun in a duel, that's going to be 5 seconds. In a TDM game, that might be as long as 30 seconds, depending on the rule set you're playing. So item timings, really unintuitive for new people, I will say that up front, but there's a lot of stuff going on here, and basically when you talk about item timings, there's a lot of people up in arms who say it's too hard and it's going to kill the game and new players can't handle it and whatever, and they usually propose two solutions. One is to make item timing simpler, which is what Quake Champions did, making everything 30 seconds, and I'll talk about that. And the other is to put item timings on the HUD, and I will definitely talk about that. Or not necessarily on the HUD, but give people a way of seeing item timings, maybe on the HUD, maybe in the world, just a way of seeing the precise moment that an item's going to respawn. Okay, but first let's just give a quick overview of what timing is and why it's such a problem. I will come out and say that timing is hard, okay? It's a really weird skill, right? You pick up an armor and you have to look at the clock and be like, oh, okay, it's 1 minute 20, that armor's going to be back at 1 minute 45, right? Like, how many games really demand that of you as regularly as an arena shooter does, right? You're timing stuff all the time. Everything you pick up has a respawn timer on it. But I think people really get carried away when they talk about it, right? There are a lot of people online who have a very pure intellectual model of Quake, like it's the gentleman's game. And I think people get a bit carried away with that. Timing's hard, but timing's hard if you want to time, all 4 major items on a map, 3 armors and a mega health, sure. But most people aren't doing that, and most people don't need to do that, right? Usually you can get away with knowing the order items are coming up in and maybe having a rough idea of maybe just the mega health, right? And that's good advice to anyone who wants to improve their timing but is scared of doing maths. And this is a lot of my games, how I'm timing, right? Have an idea of the mega health and remember the order the armors are coming up in. Because the armors are always going to come up in the same order, they have the same timer, right? So, for example, on Blood Run, if the upper armor is taken, then the red armor, then mega, then the lower armor, well, in the next cycle it's going to go upper red, lower mega, right? That lower armor and that mega are going to swap because the mega has a slightly longer time. Really simple example, but it shows how, well, you don't actually need timings to talk about respawn times, right? You can think about how the state of the map's going to change moment to moment without actually even bringing the clock into it. And for anyone else skeptical about, how easy timing can be, or, how you can make timing easier for yourself if you want it to be, Cypher gave a really great interview, and I think about 2009, 2010, about how, when him and Rafa were fighting for that top spot in Quake Live, and Cypher said, yeah, Rafa's timing, like how Rafa played around items, made Cypher time more carefully. Cypher had to time more carefully to step up to his level. So if you're number 1, number 2 in the world, and you're struggling against the other guy who's number 1, number 2 in the world, then yeah, maybe it's time to look at your game and say, hey, I need to time better. And the other thing is, if you have enough awareness of the times that you're playing well, that can actually inform a decision about, yeah, I actually need to time more precisely, right? If you're watching your games and you're like, oh, I'm at this red armor and I'm fighting around it, but, I'm 3 seconds too early or something when you try and take it, then yeah, maybe you can look at that and say, hey, I need to time better. But if you're just kind of running around with no idea, focus on improving the big picture awareness, knowing what items next, knowing the order items are coming in, rather than fussing around the exact microsecond an item comes up in, right? A lot of the games I play when I'm timing, I time to 5-second intervals. So if a mega gets picked up at 1 minute 13, I'm going to just store in my head 1 minute 50. It's so much easier than doing the math. What is that? 1 minute 48, right? I can't even do it off the top of my head. My teammates hate me when I do that in team games. They're always correcting me, it's great. Okay, so one idea for how to improve is to go with the Quake Champions model, make everything 30 seconds. And that's really, really dull, in my opinion. Because what you get is, well, just this really fixed cycle, right? Mega heavy, mega heavy, mega heavy, and, eventually one player gets a really strong control, there's just 15 seconds between the items. What does the out-of-control player do? They have to do something. This cycle's never going to change. When you compare that to the Quake Live model with the 25-second red and the 35-second mega, right? If you imagine a situation where you take red then mega, and then red then mega, exactly as they come up, the red and mega after that are going to clash. Mostly. I mean, I've taken some liberties with my timing there, but that's kind of the idea, right? They're going to clash eventually. And once they clash, an out-of-control player can do really fun and creative things to capitalize on that. And then the in-control player has to make plays so that, well, maybe they can avoid syncing them up. But then maybe the out-of-control player can put pressure on the in-control player so that they have to take the mega to create a clash, right? There's just so much depth, and it would be sad to see that go. And more to the point, it creates a very static game to just have everything in one neat cycle. Right, and the other idea, and I'm going to use specifically the example of putting item timers directly on the HUD, where, the player can see the exact time items come back all the time. And this is bad because of how it removes uncertainty from the game, right? And again, I think there's this idea, Quake's this very pure, very intellectual game, and it's a game of uncertainty. It's a game of making educated guesses and calculated risks, and taking advantage of situations that maybe are unexpected, but, taking advantage of them better than your opponent can. If you're playing out of control, you're not going to have all of the information that the in-control player has. You're not going to have times on items that they may have the opportunity to collect. And that's important. The out-of-control player, the standard is way higher for them. You have to do way more out of control. You have to be clever, you have to be tricky, you have to stand in the right place to hear your opponent jumping to red armor, so that then okay, the red's going to be in about 25 seconds. You may not hear the armor picked up, but you hear your opponent moving around in that room. And then you can get even more into the mind games. Your opponent was just there to make a sound cue to make you think the armor was there, and then they're going to own you when you try and take it 25 seconds from now. But, on the whole, the out-of-control player is listening, they're building awareness, and they're also building stack, ready to make their next play. If they had the information, there's a certain degree of mind games that are just evaporated, right? And even more than that, it would make it very easy for the in-control player to see what the out-of-control player was trying to take, or even what they had taken, and to put pressure on them accordingly. So again, I'll use Blood Run as my example here. The plasma gun room, that yellow armor, if the in-control player could have an exact time of when that was coming every single time, they could be really cheeky about spamming it out with shots, about peeking in for a rail at just the absolute worst time. I think it would make the game really, really flat and uninteresting. But even more than that, seeing the exact time and items coming back encourages a style of play called item diving, right? Mega health is coming in 1.325 seconds, so you know exactly how to dive down, so you land on the exact spot that the mega health respawns at the exact moment that it respawns, and then you have more stack than your opponent. That play can be interesting, but it can't be interesting when you can do it every single time, right? At the moment, when a player does that, when you try and walk onto an item exactly as it spawns to pick it up and get the advantage in a fight, a signature Ratha move, as far as I'm concerned, you're taking a risk. You're taking a gamble. Because what if your clock was a little bit off, right? What if your internal clock was just wrong? What if, when you take that play, it's a risk. And again, as the Ratha example, Ratha's a great player at the calculated risk. If he's taking a fight where he has to pick up an item in an exact second in order to win the fight, he's probably doing it 8 minutes into a game where he's 4 frags down, because he has to do it then in order to win the match, If everyone had it on their clock all the time, it wouldn't be exciting when someone did it. It wouldn't be interesting when someone did it. Even more, if you're diving in towards an item, right? Because the thing you have to remember in Quake and Diabotical and Reflex, movement is very powerful, and you have a lot of movement options, right? You can accelerate in the air using ancient vector bugs turned into features, right? You can rocket jump. Movement is strong. And it's easy in a very close fight where you're playing footsies with your opponent for one slightly miscalculated rocket to swing the entire fight. And if you're encouraging item diving, you're encouraging people to use movement to aggressively get into positions to land on an exact point at an exact millisecond, in such a situation where, if a defending player misses a rocket slightly, the opponent just gets right in for free. It creates situations that are just kind of dumb and that are kind of spammy. Okay, I guess I'm talking about uncertainty in a good way, and I guess what I'm saying now, this is uncertainty in a bad way. This is the close range, bumping knees fight where anything can happen, and everyone's taking them at every mega because they can. Because there's always that gamble that if you take a close range fight at mega, maybe it's going to go your way, and maybe you're going to get on that mega. What I'm trying to say is it would diminish control. It would mean the out of control player had a lot more opportunities to make plays that don't really reward what the attributes that are associated with good Quake gameplay, right? It just encourages diving and rolling the dice and hoping for the best. as opposed to educated plays about, maybe the armor's here, maybe I can sit here and my opponent's going to come this way, but I still have a backup plan, I still have a way out. You're playing around uncertainty in a way that is safe and secure, as opposed to just diving in and hoping for the best and probably dying. So look, I really hope that listening to this, people get a sense of why I appreciate item timing so much. And I have focused mostly on duel here. All these ideas apply as well to TDM or, capture the flag or whatever. It would be criminal for me to not give the specific example of capture the flag where the attacker learns the timings of their opponent's armors and steals them away and then use the opponent base resources, against the opponents. That's one of my favorite things to do. It feels so good when you get it right. And then you have power-up timing as well, power-ups that come every 2 minutes. I don't think anyone's really complaining that that's a huge problem. That's fairly easy to keep on top of. But when we're talking about item timings with armors, with mega health, with weapons, it's so important to what these games are. Not because it rewards the skill of adding 25 or adding 35, but because if you remove it, it fundamentally changes the approach to these games and some of the really beautiful playstyles that emerge around this. I think the important thing we need to remember, and I'm going to make another video talking specifically about the current state of the Diabotical subreddit, but the thing we need to remember is that Quake family games are dying, right? Unreal Tournament is pretty much dead, and Quake's going to follow really soon, unless Diabotical does something. The idea for Diabotical is that it can save, a style of gameplay with a 20-year legacy, right? It's incredible. Item timings are going to be part of this legacy, right? And people are getting really caught up on plus 25 and plus 35 when really bigger picture ideas, map awareness, taking really calculated risks, all this beautiful gameplay is what's important. And if we change these things, then we're killing this gameplay already. Diabotical is the best chance for these ideas to get packaged up into something that people can identify with and consume very, very easily. It's going to be free to play on the Epic Store. It's incredible. If we remove these things now in Diabotical, this gameplay is just dead, right? It doesn't get a chance to shine. If Diabotical fails, yeah, item timings, get rid of them. 30-second weapon respawns, Diabotical's already getting rid of them, but confirm that they're in the bin, right? But for now, for Diabotical, we just have to try something. And we have to see if this style of gameplay can have a future. So, thank you so much for listening. Hopefully this resonates with some people. I'm really interested to hear what people think about this. If there are still anti-item timing zealots out there after this, please let me know. Thanks so much for watching, and goodbye.